For years, the Bank of Scotland produced the highly respected Scottish Business Monitor. Now part of the Lloyds banking group, the Monitor continues to offer a regular health check on the Scottish economy. In the last quarter, just under a third of firms surveyed saw an increase in turnover. A third stayed the same, and just over a third saw a decrease. However, this is a substantial improvement on the position this time last year, especially since there's been a recovery in export activity. I met the bank's chief economist in the old Bank of Scotland headquarters on the Mound in Edinburgh. Professor Donald McRae has been analysing not only the bank's own figures but all the others as well. So how does he interpret these latest results? Is there still a feeling of pessimism around?
Well, business confidence remains fairly low. We had a difficult period at the end of last year. This is now showing that that's been confirmed. It's also suggesting that we're not going to return to recession, but it's also saying that we're not going to have a very strong swing back or a robust recovery from that recession.
But I remember interviewing you, about 4 years ago, and at that time there was a sense of depression, and it seems to have been almost rippling along ever since.
Well, since the worst of the recession, we have had a recovery. We've had more growth than in quarters of the year than we've had a fall back. So we've had a recovery, but the problem is it's been weak and it's been moderate. There hasn't been the strong recovery that we were all hoping for. And in fact, even in some quarters, there's been a fall in output. So it's taking longer than we all thought to make this recovery from the worst recession since the war.
How important was it, however, for the UK Treasury to have control of the level of the pound, to have the control of our own interest rates in actually helping the economy through this difficult situation?
Well, one of the things we need to do is to rebalance the economy, and that means, among other things, it means increasing exports. And we have managed to do part of that, and that's been achieved by a substantial devaluation of the pound sterling. That took place a few years ago, and without that it would have been very difficult to engineer part of this recovery and also increase our exports. We also can, for example, carry out some quantitative easing, and that has been beneficial to the UK economy. And without that, we wouldn't be having even the kind of weak recovery that we are having. So it is very useful to have these powers, if you like, those levers to pull.
But the Chancellor in his budget was actually suggesting very strongly that actually because we're so linked to the Eurozone, we really do depend on recovery there.
Our fortunes are linked with the Eurozone, but the news on the Eurozone sovereign debt crisis has certainly improved in the last month. The actions of the ECB have been very positive in ensuring that the risk of a default has reduced, and if there is a default, perhaps by Greece at some time in the future, that will not spread further than Greece. But the problem has not gone away, and we look to see evidence of Spain and Italy being able to grow their economies. That's the really crucial aspect. We want them to demonstrate that they can grow their economies and control their deficits.
So thinking of the budget, did the Chancellor do enough actually to stimulate recovery?
Well, let's look at what GDP is made up of. A large part of it is, of course, consumption. In other words, consumer spending by all of us. Now, that's only going to grow slowly in the next couple of years. But another part of GDP is business investment. And that business investment level is not back to where it was even before the recession. So I was looking for more measures in the budget to encourage business investment. Perhaps, for example, an increase in capital allowances, or even authorization of capital or infrastructure projects. I was looking for more of these measures to encourage business investment.
But I know of commentators who are suggesting that we're not going to have a full recovery for perhaps another 5-7 years. What's your take on that?
I think that's a bit pessimistic. It is true to say that recessions caused by financial crises usually take longer to recover from than other recessions, caused by a shock, for example, like there was in the 70s with the oil price increase. So it is true to say that if you have a financial crisis causing a recession, that the recovery is a little bit harder. And of course, this time around, the problems are really widespread. So if you look back in history, and you can find evidence of quick recoveries in some countries from recession, but only if they have strong links to other countries nearby who are not in recession. This time, it's hard to see where there are economies that we are intimately connected with who haven't had a problem. I mean, we just talked about the Eurozone, for example, and the US. They've both had the problems that we've had. So the world economy is in a bit of a problem, and there's this imbalance between the developed countries and the developing countries. So I think there will definitely be a recovery. We're actually having a recovery now, although it's weak. And I think it's overly pessimistic to suggest that will carry on, for another 4 or 5 years.